guy that I can play golf with that hits a golf ball 300, and I can't get 250. Well, and it is, but that's what kills me sometimes, is my softball swing will come into play. And I'll fly, and I'll do this. When I learned, and this is something I learned in class, just mark, how you do everything, that's what it's supposed to be. You ain't got a horse, and that's why I keep him all in that. Yes, I think he's not that. Over a little bit. Yeah, you're good. Do everything. Do everything you're not supposed to. Not yet. I watch this, but sometimes he's playing. He does everything you're not supposed to.
Sunday, February 5th, 2023, coming to you live from the Delray Beach Golf Club in beautiful Delray Beach, Florida, on a rainy, chilly, 75-degree winter morning in South Florida. Pepper, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Great night last night. Well, I should say great 3 days. We had our Big 8 tournament. Thursday night, we're down 8 at halftime, and we ended up coming back and winning by 3. Friday night, we're down by 6 at halftime. We come back and win by 2. Last night, we're down 3 at halftime. We come back and win by 1. Great group of kids. They work hard. We're very fortunate to come out with a win on those 3 nights. But we got to do our show and celebrate a little bit later.
Outside of your game yesterday, right? What you've been following the Qs? What's going on there?
But we at Boston College yesterday. I haven't really followed the Qs that much. I don't have the ACC network, so I don't get the games that much down here. Just what I get off of the Syracuse sports page and that. We were just talking earlier about Roosevelt and I were doing a show a few years ago with the Syracuse games and that, and it's tough for them. They got a young team, and it's a work in progress. And I think they'll adjust, and that 2-3 zone is going to surprise a lot of people going down the stretch.
Boeheim's last year.
It's tough to say. The guy lives, sleeps, and drinks basketball. So I don't know if he'll enjoy his retirement or he'll stay around for another year.
Before we bring on our first guest, that we don't want to spend a lot of time on this introduction here, but I do want to say this show is brought to you by the Jacob Companies. They're the tops in construction design and construction management. Jacob Companies, they build stadiums, sports venues, hotels, resorts, hospitals, schools. They're one of the best in the world, actually. Jacob Companies, our main sponsor. And also we picked up a new sponsor, which will be the official wardrobe of the Salt&Pepper Sports Show. I'm actually wearing their apparel. It's Let's Go Golf Wear. Let's Go Golf Wear is loud, it's flashy, it's extremely comfortable, especially down here when it gets up to 100 degrees. And it's kind of a cool story. It's we always have that foursome and that one guy or a woman that is late to the first tee, so they're always saying let's go, let's go. So you'll see more and hear more about Let's Go Golf Wear. In fact, we'll be putting this on our ticker in a little bit.
Well, looking at the shirt you got on and the hat you have on, that's more of a social outfit I can wear when I go out at night. It's beautifully designed. I like all the ducks on it and everything, the flowers. It looks almost like my backyard.
We might Salt&Pepper T-shirt and hats might have to collaborate with Let's Go Golf Wear and maybe do a Salt&Pepper line for golf. But hopefully this is an ongoing relationship. And
I just want to cut in a second. I saw the guys last week, and they had a nice, I don't know what you want to call it, peach color or pink color shirt on with the black birds and the trees and stuff. That was a beautiful shirt. So glad you made the deal. I'm looking forward to sporting some of their gear.
I was sharing. Last thing I'm going to say before we bring Misty on, but I was just actually telling the founders here that even though we live where it was, I think, minus 84 the other day, it's a big golf area, Central New York, and we're fouled a lot, and hopefully we'll put their website on here, and hopefully they'll check them out because this stuff is really, really good, and pricing is competitive. It's just a really good line. I'm very, very comfortable.
Right.
So I'm excited about today's show. Ben Rizzo, Stan Buddy Evans, icons up in New York high school basketball, and the number one or the top professional athlete, mindset coach, and mental health coach. I got a lot of questions to ask Misty. So without further ado, I want to bring Misty Buck on.
You have to excuse me. It takes me a long time to get up and down. So
No,
excuse me,
all
I didn't
good.
stand up.
I'm good. Happy to
Thank
be
you for
here.
coming on our show.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
I hope you had a nice drive up from Miami.
Well, a little bit of weather, but born and raised here, so we're used to it. We know how to navigate it. Thanks to my husband for getting us safely here.
Well, thank you. They were right on time. And, as Ed said, he's got a lot of questions for you. I've heard a lot about the field because my girlfriend's into the mental health and drug addiction field, and she works for Dr. Amy.
Yeah, which is impressive.
So,
Just give a brief bio how you evolved into this role. I know you do have a sports background.
A little bit, yeah,
Okay.
a little bit of a sports background.
So how did Misty Buck become one of the top pro athlete, mental health, and mindset coaches?
We were very kind to say one of the top. First of all, I appreciate that. I'll take that all day. But I grew up in sports, and I was a youth athlete. I coached athletes. My dad was a coach. My brother was a player. I mean, the field was like my home, right? In football in particular is where it was spent a lot of time. So, I really learned so much about that competitiveness and the camaraderie and just being a part of that. It brought so much to my life. And then later in my life, or like in my high school years, when I started suffering with depression, and it was a serious issue. Didn't even know what was going on at the time, but I was able to overcome that. And then years and years later, when I was going through anxiety and just kind of all these other things that I've gone through in my life, I got certified as a life coach. And I thought, who do I want to help? And someone said to me, I had thought of different things and different people. And then someone said to me, what are the things that impacted you the most? And I was like, well, I absolutely loved coaching. And I love sports, obviously around that arena. And then my battle with mental health and illness. And so I was like, why don't I help people who have been through the same thing, learn the same kind of values I did, right? Which was a lot of back then. Misty, don't be soft. Don't be weak. Why are you crying again? You're such a baby. So like a lot of shame happening there. And so how do I help other people learn to honor their emotions and manage them and kind of bring that mental toughness to it too, but to help yourself overcome your difficulties. So that's in a nutshell.
Well, I see a lot of mental health with young kids and athletes, in sports in general, and even kids just in school in general.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of everybody says peer pressure.
Right.
I've been the type of person that I'm not a follower.
Mm-hmm.
And I never have been. I don't fall into the trap with the other kids when I was younger, getting in trouble and stuff. I created my own trouble. But a lot of this stress with kids and mental health with kids is coming from their parents, where they're demanding, or not demanding, but wanting them to be this great person that they're not, or they want their child to be something in their life that they weren't in their own life. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult for a kid to be that young and try to please their parents all the time.
Right.
And as you get older as an adult, athletic wise and stuff like that, I'm a star in high school. I'm the best player in the county.
Right.
When I go to college and I don't even get off the bench.
Right.
Now all of a sudden, I got all these things going on in my head.
Right.
So the first thing I do is, turn to alcohol, drugs.
Mm-hmm.
getting in with the wrong crowd, listening to those voices that I shouldn't be listening to.
Right.
The people in the stands, or even your parents telling you you're better than you are. But the bottom line is we need to culture these kids and nurture these kids to help them understand that you've got to make some decisions on your own, and you may need help to turn those voices down.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know that these I'm going to say tools are available to you.
Right.
You do a great job of what you're doing, and Crystal, like I said, was involved in the drug alcohol situation and stuff. And, even the concussion protocol is very high now.
Yes.
All that factors into where we need to reach out for help, not just trying to hold it in. That makes it worse.
So we had met because not only are you a mental health coach, you're an author and a speaker. We'll talk about your book.
Yes.
Yeah, but we had met actually. I think I was doing research. I came across you, but MTI, Stock and Octavian McDougall, they wanted to do a speaking engagement, and Randy Grimes was going to be a speaker.
Right.
You graciously said you were going to be a speaker, and the theme was it's okay not to be okay.
Right.
And unfortunately, COVID kind of put a cramp in that whole thing. But that's how we met.
Right.
So I know it's pro athlete mental and mindset coach. What do you work with? Do you work at the like Dale said, the student level, or what kind of what kind of solutions do you bring, or when you have an athlete that, as Dale said, might be pressured by their parent or is not meeting their own expectations?
Right.
What do you tell that student athlete?
That student athlete in particular. So I think it depends on the individual. So I'm really big on, first of all, not bringing judgment into the situation and meeting people where they are. So how do I do that? First, I have to build a rapport, and I have to, because trust is the biggest factor there. So when you're talking about people reaching out for help, making that phone call, asking for help, for a lot of people, that's the toughest step in the whole process, right? They may be one of the bravest decisions they'll ever have to make in their whole life, is to open their mouth up and say, I'm not okay, I need help. Because who wants to really admit that, right? So I think we really start there. And then the second step is to build trust. So how do I help that individual, whether it's a pro athlete, student athlete, or wherever they are in their journey, or even business owners that I work with, how do I help you, build that trust? And then from there, we really talk about your journey and where you're at. And as a coach, my job is a little bit different, right? So I'm not a therapist. I don't have a psychology degree. I'm not a licensed mental health professional. So I can't dig into your past. I can't diagnose you. I can't do any of that, right? That's not my lane. And if you need that level of care, I will refer you to a provider or work with one with you. But where we are is we're looking at the present moment and moving forward. So where are you now, and how do we do that? So if it's, for instance, a mindset block or an insecurity or something like that happening, then we'll dig into that and kind of see where that person is, but also what's your motivation, what's your why, and really get to know the individual. So then we can start to craft things that make sense for you to build new habits and start to turn things around through different tools that work for you. Because I may tell one person meditation, and that may not work for everybody. Okay, so what are we going to find that works for you, for example? Journaling. Okay, maybe you're not a journaler. All right, so what else can you do? What's another outlet that you can use that's productive?
So your background, I saw as seen on Sirius, and you're part of the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And the NFL alumni.
So we are.
Talk about your affiliations and your role amongst those affiliations.
Right. So I am a coach and contributor with the Hall of Fame Health, which is an affiliate of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And the Hall of Fame Health is this tremendous organization. They help from physical health to mental health to substance abuse. Wherever you're at, they're helping athletes and their families with resources to overcome these different issues, right? So you meet wherever you're at and you want to talk to somebody that gets it. This is a program that you can call to be connected with providers and treatment centers and whatever it is that you need, hospitals, people that understand your body, your mind, everything that goes into it. So that's that. And then we are an enterprise member of the NFL Alumni Association.
So what is Joseph Asay going through right now?
I would have to talk to him.
But I guess when we were promoting the show and talking about your background, I mean, to me, that would be an example of potentially you helping somebody get through that situation.
Mhm.
So can you speak to maybe what building blocks you would share with him to overcome that? Or?
Yeah, again, I don't like to make assumptions, so this is very generically
Sure,
speaking.
sure,
It would be
absolutely.
based on sort of where he's at with what happened. I think in those situations, what you need to do is kind of see where you're at with it now. Be really honest with yourself. Peel back those layers. Self-reflect. Right? Heal whatever part of that needs to be healed, and then decide what it is that you need to do to move forward so that you don't have anything in the back of your head making you second guess yourself and your performance moving forward. And so again, not that he's doing that, but those are things that we would look at. So for example, one of the things that I really like to do with athletes is, and anybody really, is let's look at all your achievements, right? So for him, maybe we want to look at all the stats that and all his contributions that got the team to that point in their season to begin with, right? So obviously he's not the only player, but looking at things like that, looking at different angles. Like, yes, that was an unfortunate incident that happened, but the game has a ton of variables. That's not the only variable that controlled the game. So like looking at stuff like that to help you redirect your thoughts so that you can move forward. So one of my favorite things that I coach people, and I tell this to everybody, this is probably like my favorite thing, is that I've ever come up with, all the things, is the future happens in the present. So it's not what happened then, it's what's happening right now that's leading you to your future. So how do you get to that space?
Well, in his defense, I mean, it's very tough on him when you got one of your teammates screaming in the background.
That was not helpful.
And,
Yeah, I was actually going to mention it.
That makes it even worse because,
Yeah.
I mean, me as an athlete and, teammate and stuff like that, okay, you want to encourage your teammates, you want to keep them positive, regardless of the outcome, it's a team effort.
Right.
And, my biggest saying to players when I was in college and that was, there's no one person leading the team.
Right.
This is all of us in together.
Correct.
And one play doesn't win or lose a game for you.
Right.
It's the course of the game and that.
Exactly.
And
had they been up a touchdown, it wouldn't have mattered. Right.
To have a teammate, say those things to him on his way into the locker room. I mean, that makes that makes things grind even worse for you.
Right.
Mentally and I mean, it forces you. I mean, you see a lot of these teams, fighting amongst each other.
Right.
And things like that is what ignites those things. And we should encourage each other, embrace each other, regardless of the situation.
Right.
And I know you're upset about losing the game and everything, but guess what? Life goes on.
This is your brother, right?
And this is a guy you're in the trenches with.
Yeah, you're in the trenches with. So I'm glad you're bringing this up because this team dynamic. One of the things that I'm so big on that I'm really going in on this year is peer groups. Mm-hmm. So whether that's within organizations and teams, or like for instance, we just started a peer group with a friend of mine, Marcus Ogden, who played in the NFL. His brother, Jonathan Ogden, is in the Hall of Fame. And we just started a peer group specifically for former pro athletes that want to we just meet once a week virtually, and we're just talking about just giving that camaraderie and supporting one another and that whole iron sharpens iron thing. So, but I think you can do that within teams too, so that in these moments, even though you're emotional and even though we're competitive, right, and we want these things to happen, and I don't know what's going on in their locker room. I'm not drawing any kind of judgment on that. I'm just saying, like, these are the kinds of things that you can do as an organization, I think, to bring the team together so that, we have a little bit more of that support in all circumstances, right?
So we're from Central New York, right?
Right.
And, we're proud of where we're from. It's kind of a dynamic where you've got people that are Jets fans, Giants fans, and Buffalo Bills fans. Right at the New York State.
The trifecta.
Yeah. So here's another question I have is the Buffalo Bills, right?
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs left, right? Like, how? What do you say to him? I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about, Dale?
No, I didn't see that.
So he didn't wait. He left after they lost, and on one hand, he's saying, it's not acceptable. That's why he didn't want to be around at the end of the. But on the other hand, you're part of a team,
right?
So it's it's intriguing to me what you do. Like, what do you say to somebody like that?
That just like
That just,
leaves.
yeah, but on one hand, you're admiring his level setting expectations, and they didn't achieve it, so he didn't feel worthy of staying there. He just left. On the other hand, you're saying you're part of a team. You need to be there with your teammates.
Right.
Mental health's a big issue. I worked at Nicholas Children's Hospital for a few years, and while I was there, there was a big emphasis on raising money to build out their mental health support
Unit,
system.
yeah.
And in fact, one of the big galas. What's that?
Just a good hands.
Yeah, and there's an ongoing emphasis on mental health.
Right.
What do you say to somebody like that?
To
Stephen Diggs.
I mean, maybe he felt very comfortable with that, and he would do it again. I don't know. You know, like this is why I talk about meeting people where they're at, and so like what happened in that moment. Is that something that you feel that you would 100% do again? Is it something that you feel that you want to correct and want to understand why you had that emotional response, and you want to do a better job of like controlling that? Or is it something that, because this is the thing with that. So we can talk about mental health and mental tweaks all we want, but if the individual doesn't see they're comfortable with where they're at and they don't really want to face anything or make changes, what do you do?
So this is the question out of everything we're talking about that was on my mind to ask you.
Here we go. This is gonna be
I pushed out a YouTube video of you that talked about the 3 things to find inner peace.
Yes.
In performing at the highest level.
Yes.
And you mentioned intensity. Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods. Tom Brady, the best of the best. Is it expected that they're just wired differently to get to that level, and everything else, including their personal life, has to take a back seat or is impacted by that?
Yeah.
Because it's the goats of the goats. Lawrence Taylor, we were talking about earlier, right? It just seems they don't have balance, and you talk about that, right? You talk about you can still achieve that, and he's not going to be on today's show, but Kaiser White will be on our show. Kaiser White's the starting linebacker for the Eagles,
right?
And he when he saw some of the promotions and stuff that I mentioned, he just jumped on and started inquiring. Humble guy, right?
Yeah.
But that is an interesting concept because I struggle with that. I'm saying, like, can Michael Jordan be Michael Jordan if he tried to get balance in some respects? So does he have to be 1,000%?
Well, let's talk about what balance is.
All right.
Right. So when I'm talking about balance, when you're an athlete, even if you're a student athlete, that takes up a good portion of your life, right? And so there's even family dynamics where your spouses understand that, you know, there's certain dynamics that have to happen during season and this because you have training, you have responsibilities, your schedule is what your schedule is, and that's it, right? So that's, in terms of like a time balance, it's not going to be perfectly even because you have to do what you have to do your job, right? That's number one. But when I'm talking about balance, I mean your inner balance. I mean approaching every situation where, as much as you can in life, because this is not possible 100% of the time, but feeling a sense of groundedness and a sense of centeredness and a sense of balance within yourself so that you're making clearer decisions, which helps you be a better performer. So let me break that down for just a second. So a lot of times people are afraid to come for help because they feel like if I start to do this work, I'm going to lose that edginess within me. I'm going to lose, some guys might call it their dog. I'm going to lose that within me because that's what all those things that I hold on to is what fuels me in my performance, right? So that's great. But if you're walking around with those things, you can only perform to the level that you have healed these blocks within you. Why? Because, for example, if you have all this anger inside of you, maybe it translates well on the field during the game. But then after the game, if whatever happens and you're angry and you throw something or you whatever, because your emotions are still running and you don't understand how to manage those things, that's not going to help. If you're not having a good game, you start out bad, and now that's all you're focusing on, because now you're just super angry all the time because you want to be perfect and you're really mad at yourself. Well, guess what? Now you're not going to perform well either, because you're throwing yourself out of your game. So guys, like, you can Google this. I don't know them, but this is public information. MJ, Kobe, a lot of these athletes, LeBron, they use things like meditation. They tap into creating that inner balance for that sense of clarity, so that the simplest way to put it is you're kind of in that clarity of the zone as much as possible. So that's an inside job. It's not necessarily what's happening in your schedule.
Right.
I'm talking about the inside job of that.
But I think that's something that all athletes need to try to think about and try to understand. A lot of our student athletes, they make a mistake, their head goes down.
Yeah.
They miss a shot, their head goes
Right.
down, they come out of the game.
Well, to the pressure that you were talking about earlier too, right? So it's all these things like compounding, right?
I try to talk to every player that comes out of the game, and I let them know, listen, don't worry.
Right.
Go back in and play. Just relax, get your head together, get a little rest, and go back and do the best you can.
Right.
Coach isn't mad at you, but he needs somebody to be in a different
refocus.
Situation.
Right.
He needs you to be
right.
at the top of your game. And it's tough a lot of times. We have guys that struggle all the time, and they get mad, and then it makes it worse.
Right.
And they don't understand that because you're relying on something that's happened in the past. And as you said, the future is now.
The future happens in the present, 100%. In those situations, I try to tell. I've spoken with guys that have those issues, and they get really frustrated because now they're taken out of their game. They're mad at themselves. They're getting mad at their teammates. They feel like everything falls on their shoulders for whatever reason, and now they're like really thrown off of their game. Versus I'm like, okay, just take a couple deep breaths and refocus. It's not that there's nothing you can do about the shot that you missed. What you can do is focus, refocus, breathe. And just take just calm down for a minute and refocus on what you need to do.
Regarding, youth sports, I just read an article the other day, and I'm not sure how much, I know you're a pro athlete, mental health and mindset coach, but Robert Horry, big shot, Lakers, 5-time NBA champion. He caused the scene at his son's basketball tournament. And the article was just about how parents are creating mental health issues for their children based on their behavior and expectations, etc. What kind of advice? There's the standard, let the kids be who they are, whatever. But does it get deeper than that?
It gets deeper than that. One of the issues that we're dealing with youth, a lot of youth athletes, and just our youth in general, is it's pressure, it's isolation, but also perfectionism. And so how do we coach around perfectionism? So one thing that I'm always telling parents that they can do is one, understand that the circumstances that children are growing up today is not the same circumstances that we grew up in, and so we can't necessarily raise them that we were raised the way we were raised or based only on our experiences as a kid, right? And it's hard because we want to give them this sense of resiliency, and we want them to achieve. And there's more, as time goes on and people achieve more and more, that bar just keeps going up and up and up, right? So that pressure is happening, going higher, because they got to do more and more and more to be seen. But I think for parents, in terms of at least the perfectionist part, they've been saying this for decades. But one of the things that I really love is to praise your kid on their effort. Coaches, praise the kid on the effort. So maybe, for instance, they weren't in the position that they were supposed to be in and they missed whatever, the rebound or whatever it is. Say, okay, you know what? I liked your hustle to get there. It just didn't happen soon enough. So tweak this and that so that you're closer to the position next time or whatever. I'm not a coach, but you would know better. But you know what I mean? I acknowledge your effort versus you got it wrong. So
here's a pointed question. What is your position on everybody gets a trophy at a young age?
I don't know that I necessarily have a position on that. So when I grew up, there were definitely holes in that too, but that was not the situation. It was
neither for us. And I'm grateful that we didn't grow up in that
Right.
culture where everybody
Right.
got a trophy. It taught us losing and winning and what you have to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I think that there's something to that, where look, that's life in general, right? Where it's not always going to be fair and you're not always going to win. But that's why I think teaching these kids these things of like, okay, if you didn't win, let's pick ourselves back up and let's refocus, building that resiliency piece. And you can do both. You can praise the effort, right? And you can build the resiliency piece too, because you know what's going to happen is at the end of the day, they're going to grow up and have to get jobs,
Right.
and the boss doesn't care if you
yeah.
showed up for work but didn't work. You know what I mean? Like that's not how it works. So I don't know. I think it depends on the environment. You know, if you want to get a participation trophy, great, but like let's talk about as parents like what that means. You know.
Well, I'm a former member. You know, over the years of playing against other kids and stuff like that, and I don't give them a chance to win. You know,
But I don't see a
wanna
problem.
beat you.
Honestly, I think
But
it's fine.
I'd say to the parents and stuff, I'd say, listen, I don't want to give the kid a false sense of security or anything else.
Right.
That he's just going to walk out there and he's going to be a grown man playing basketball.
Right.
It's not possible.
Right.
You know, at that young age and stuff. So, you know, I just treat him like everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna beat you down. Like
But I think that's
put on a
important.
parade.
That's important. So my husband used to play basketball at like one of our local parks, and I won't say their names, but like one or two NBA players would show up there just to kind of shoot around in the off season, and they would not go easy on these kids.
yeah.
Like, and it helped him develop because he was like, "Damn, I thought I was good until like this guy showed up, and now I realize I'm not good at all."
So so you're sitting there. Here's a little trivia question, right?
Oof. Okay.
You know how you watch some college players or not pro, but college players and high school players wear a T-shirt under their jerseys, right? You're sitting next to the original Shaq that did that back in the 70s.
Right.
He started that trend.
Oh.
And
Look at that.
he guarded Magic Johnson, and Bernard King, and Ernie Grunfeld. But he's the original Shaq, not Shaquille O'Neal.
It's SHACK.
Oh.
Okay.
I just got school today.
So you're an author.
I am an author.
Let's
My
talk
second
about-
book's about to come
Let's
out.
talk about your
The athlete
mental health playbook.
playbook. Yeah. So I'm really proud of this book. It's a short book. As you can see, it's not anything that's that big of it's not hard to read. My point with this is that I wanted to come out with a book that was readable, digestible. There's worksheets in here, exercises as you go. So I didn't want something that felt clinical. I didn't want something that an athlete was going to pick up, or an educator or a coach or whoever, and like couldn't understand what was going on. So this is based a lot on my experiences, but also just stuff that I noticed, like just basic stuff, like groundwork that you can do. And actually, I'm really excited because there's programs that are using this. For example, I just found out not too long ago that there's a program at UCLA that
Nice.
uses this book
Wow,
in its
okay.
curriculum. So that's super exciting. And then my second book is coming out next month, and that is the Athlete Branding Blueprint. And I'm super excited about that one because that one. So I have a background in marketing too.
Right. We didn't
And
talk about that. But
But so many things to talk about.
is that
So-
focused on the NIL?
A little bit. So this one is actually for athletes at all levels. It could be even if you're not an athlete, you could read it and pick stuff up from it. But the reason I'm so happy with it is because the first half is all about the mindset part. So like, how do you build an authentic brand? How do you move past fear and negativity in building a brand? How do you deal with all the noise that's out there? How do you work through all these different things? And then the second half, I teach you like, okay, this is marketing. This is how you build a brand. Here's some worksheets to help you do that and build out your brand. Here's what you can do if you're transitioning out of the sport and now you're wondering, how do I get people to know me as something other than an athlete? So, and what do I do next? There's a chapter about that. So I'm really excited about that one.
So Pepper. So I think we both endorse Misty to all the athletic directors, high school coaches, even some pros we know, to contact her or contact us. The old Central United League, right? The Syracuse University, SUNY Conference, all the State University of New York schools. This is
Broward County,
right.
Association.
This is, you want to get Misty there. All right. We're not her agent, but Get her on
Maybe.
get her on a flight, get her a hotel.
Do you want to be my agent? I'm looking for one.
But
That's a good person to do that.
it'd be an amazing thing to get your student athletes exposed to relative to a speaking engagement or even just a non-speaking engagement, talk with coaches or whatever. But this was great. I mean, we've got some pretty good people watching. He's an icon. I know. He's going to come on next day, Buddy Evans, but I know he was intrigued. But thank you so much.
Thank
really,
you
really
guys. I'm so excited. This was awesome. I'm glad I finally got to meet you in person. I've heard so much about you for so long.
We go back a long way, since high school. We played basketball together.
Yeah.
We've been great friends ever since.
I love that.
I'm just going to end on this. Like, and you might know some folks too, but we achieved some pretty high levels. So that transition to when that doesn't happen, it takes a toll. Unfortunately, and I think your family has a lot to do with that transition process. But I related to what you do because even some of my teammates had an issue. I think back when we played, as my coach said, one of the issues of that transitioning was everybody thought they were going to play in the NBA.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And some dear friends of mine had struggled with that, and I think that's where Misty comes in with that transition process. So thank you so much.
Thank
the
you,
sun's
guys.
out,
I know
right?
the sun
As we
finally
know,
came out.
the sun always comes out in
Our
Florida.
conversation brought out the sun.
But you were great, and this is a great morning.
I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for making the time for me
And
this morning.
you can go get the salt specials. I think today is chicken tenders and fries.
That's the Salt&Pepper special today?
Yeah, it is.
All right.
But
I'm
they
gonna
do have a
check
nice
this out.
double cheeseburger and so thank you so much.
Well, I don't eat meat, but I'm gonna go check it out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to transition here. Our hometown segment is brought to you by Hilden Natural Mineral Water. Water good enough for the royal family. Why don't you tell the background story about that before we bring on Coach Evans?
Well, Hilden Water was brought to the United States by a good friend of mine, Dave Hanna, who was from England. I met Dave in 1982 playing basketball at my first stop in West Bromwich, England. At that time, Dave was the manager of McDonald's. So, we became great friends over the years. And a few years ago, he brought the water into the United States, and it's in most of the resorts, restaurants, and hotels. So, if you see the Hilden water, please try it out. It's the water of the royal family of England. It's a great flavor. They do also have the sparkling water.
Okay, so what we're going to try to do now, and what we learned from last week, is that when we bring on people remote for our hometown segment, we have to put our headsets on. So we're going to do that right now. And we're going to bring on Coach Stan Buddy Evans. Coach, are you there? Can you hear us?
Good morning, gentlemen. Yes, I do.
Coach, you don't know this, but back in the day, if there was a coach that I wanted to play for outside of Notre Dame, it was you.
You should have said that back then. I would have taken.
Coach, thanks a lot. I had a great conversation with your wife this morning. She's a very lovely lady. We talked the other day, and even though it rained here earlier, we woke up, right? We woke up today.
On the right side of the grass. That's what's important when you get my age.
But for me, when I go back to my childhood and high school sports, the COL was top echelon. That was where it's at. And in my mind, in my opinion, there were only three iconic coaches One was Jim Klein, who I never played for, and I know Dale, aka Pepper, shares his feelings and says Jim's responsible for a lot of his success, for most, his success. But it's you and Ben Rizzo. Those are the three. And this hometown segment has gotten a lot of positive feedback, and I'm just really happy you're here.
Coach, Dale Shackelford here. It's great to see you on the bright side of the court instead of the opposite side of the court. We've had some great games over the years. We had a big rivalry over the years. I remember back in the 70s, Rome and Notre Dame. We had battles. We packed the house at both schools, and we both had a lot of success. It was great, competitive basketball. And I also had the pleasure of working with you at the Syracuse basketball camp in the past. So, seeing you today and knowing what you've done for basketball, and I know you did a little bit with baseball, and you refereed football games and things like that. You were a great ambassador to the Central New York area, and I think Ed and I have learned a lot, from you. And your style of coaching, and the pleasure of knowing you and your family over the years.
Well, thank you, Dale, for the kind words. I guess Jim's fine, but Bud's wiser. That sign's too.
I remember that sign.
I remember that sign.
Yes.
That sign came right out of the old RFA gym.
Yes, sir. I remember that.
Those were 4 great games, and I'll never forget them. They were just exciting games. We were tied 1 game apiece, and we had a playoff down at Utica College, which you, unfortunately for us, you beat us to win the COL championship, and we played again in the Section 3 final game, 5,200 people in the old Utica auditorium, which was a great, for us, that was it.
Yeah.
But both of you were great players and great ambassadors, and Coach Klein was really way ahead of his time.
Yes, sir.
As far as coaching goes and what he did defensively and offensively, and I always admired him. And if we could beat Notre Dame, that was it for us as far as the season goes.
Coach, but going back to the COL, wasn't it almost seemed like every game, Whitesboro, New Hartford, Utica Proctor was a rivalry game. I mean, that doesn't happen today, does it?
Not really. No, we got out of there in 86, 87. We went up to the Onondaga High School League. So the COL really broke up back in 1986, 87. And one of the reasons why it broke up was that a lot of those schools in the OCOL, they didn't have modified sports, and they'd have football one year and they wouldn't the next year. So our administrators felt that it was better for us to go up and play in the Syracuse League, where they all had modified football, basketball, baseball, and they didn't have a problem scheduling. That's how we ended up there and dropping out of the COL.
Yeah, I remember going. Anytime in my mind, the ultimate honor, and we got Coach Ben Rizzo coming up after you, and they recently dedicated the field in his name. Stroud Gym. As we get older, we forget a lot of stuff, but I'll never forget Buddy Evans' warm-ups for Rome Free Academy at Stroud Gym, 100 degrees. I'll be honest, I'm a closet RFA person. I would have loved to get on that unicycle and all that. That was just me. And that's why I say you were an innovator.
Well, listen, the only one that suffered in that pregame was the concession stand, because nobody would go up to the concession stand. They all wanted to watch our pregame. And we only did that at home naturally. And that's the reason why we did it. We wanted players and fans and everything to watch our pregame show rather than warming up. And we took a lot of pride in that. And that whole show came from the University of Tennessee. They used to do that in their pregame. That's where we got it from.
Now,
But-
I've got a question that's been around for a long time with RFA sports in general. Griffiths Air Force Base gave you guys a lot of great talent through the military. How do you adjust from that, to be as competitive, after they close the base?
Well, certain sports had helped more than others. Like in basketball, if you got a young athlete, say he came into Griffiths as a sophomore, or it was good. You had him for 3 years, but we lost a lot of players too, who were in our program, say in 7th grade and 8th grade. Then their father would get transferred out, and we lost them. One, for instance, is Pat Toomey, who ended up in the NFL playing quarterback. He played in our program as a freshman.
Oh, wow.
So there were some negative parts of that too. But we did, football. Football was one sport which really was an advantage with the base, because football is a sport where you can get a kid in 1 year or 2 months, make him a defensive end or a defensive back or something like that. In basketball, you had to work with them. It was a little more difficult.
Coach, I'm 63 years old, and like I said earlier about the memory issues that we all go through as we get older, but I can see it is right in front of me right now. My senior year at Stroud, I'm in warm-ups, and I'm going from one line to the other, and it's 100 degrees, and I said, "Hey, Coach Evans, it's too cold in here." And you looked at me and you busted a gut, and you said, "I'm running to the thermostat. I'm going to turn that up to 120 degrees." I mean, that is what I loved about you, man. That was that. I remember that. Can you believe that?
Listen, the more you talked about the heat, the more we took advantage of it. We had a custodian who used to walk through the gym with about 3 minutes left in the warm-ups, and everybody would cheer him on. His name was Popeye. He didn't do anything with the heat, but the more people thought it was hotter, the more we took advantage of it.
I think
The only person one time, John Devendorf at Baldwinsville, never warmed up. He kept his team in the locker room right up until the officials went out to throw the ball up for the jump ball. And he was a good friend of mine, and somebody said something to him. He says, "You think I'm going to go out there and watch that show?" He says, "Our kids." And he did. He stayed right in the locker room the whole pregame.
Wow, that's a great story. Yeah, that's a great story.
What else it did is some kids that didn't play that much, they took a lot of pride in that pregame because it was a time for them to put on a little show for themselves. So I think maybe it kept some kids in the program who wouldn't play, who probably would have quit. But because of the pregame, they felt that they were more part of the team, and they worked at what they did.
So truth be told, Coach, I know Dale, you lost to Buddy one time, right, in the sectionals?
I think I lost one twice.
Twice.
Yeah.
So truth be told, Buddy, I'm undefeated against you.
I know.
Just for the record.
And you also led the league in scoring, and you beat my man Ernie Coleman out for first place.
I
know
led the
that
league.
too.
You know what, though? I led the league in scoring my senior year,
Yeah.
but I didn't even come close during my career to score 1,000 points, which tells you back then, just the teamwork. And today, I think, my son played ball, and I think the first 7 guys of any high school team, if a coach wants to make that player 1,000 point scorer, they can. Like they're totally unfocused, but that's just my opinion. But I didn't even come close to scoring 1,000 points in my career at Notre Dame, and I played varsity 3 years.
You must not have gave enough money to Notre Dame now.
Coach, I did not realize this, but you won like almost 500 games as a baseball coach.
Yes, I'm in the Hall of Fame because nobody in their right mind would coach JV baseball for 43 years.
You coached 43 years. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We had some great games against your Notre Dame JVs too in baseball.
Coach, I got somebody chimed in here. Said in 1976 JV baseball game at RFA. This is Notre Dame. They're having infield practice before the game, and Joe Beatrice is playing first base. He throws an errant ball to the catcher, and it hits Coach Tom Sardelli in the ass. He goes ballistic on Joey, and we look over in the Rome dugout. Buddy is splitting a gut. Most funniest comical thing I've ever seen before in a game. Do you remember that?
Yes, I can remember that. You don't think I'd be laughing, would you really?
So, Coach,
you knew me better than that.
So, Coach, you left Rome. You did some coaching stints. I know your son was the head coach at Lemoyne, right? You assisted there. You assisted at Hamilton, right? You assisted at SUNY.
I assisted at SUNY with a good friend of your Notre Dame is Kevin Grimmer. Yes.
Right.
And I was 5 years with Coach Murphy there at SUNY.
And you coached what was the
Empire State. The Empire State Games.
Some U.S. not Olympic team, but
yeah. Well, it was the Eastern. It used to be. It was part of what the Olympics were, and they used to have them in every 4 years. And I coached with Lou Carnesecca down in.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I read. That's quite the resume.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. That was 10 days down in Baton Rouge with Coach Carnesecca. That was an experience.
Now, Coach, I just want to just ask you a quick question there. I know you did the Syracuse basketball camp for a few years and that. Did you ever get caught up in any of those poker games?
Did I ever get caught up in what?
Any of those poker games at night?
No. I was too smart. The Bay is smart, but I was too smart for that. I watched too many young coaches, guys that worked as RAs, lose their whole week's paycheck. How can you beat Boeheim and Bernie Fine in a poker game when they got all the money? No. I could tell you stories, but my wife's listening, so I better not. But we had a lot of fun there at Coach Boeheim's camp.
We had Bernie Fine last season. Bernie's down here in Boca Raton. And,
right.
He was a great guest with Nick Lambros. You remember Nick from Hartwick?
Well, how could I from Hartwick?
Yeah. I
saw Nicky here a couple months ago. Yeah, he's one of a kind.
He is one of a kind, and I admire him because he said the biggest mistake he made in recruiting was not recruiting me. So the fact that he could say that. But we talked the other day on the phone. I remember just. I mean, if you think about it, I was a competitor of you, but I knew the history. I knew the Ernie Colemans. That we talked about James Parker, the guy that could jump out, right? Joe Mortis. I talked. Yeah. Didn't you play football? What was your senior year in football? You played against Joe Mortis, right? He could punt the ball like I've never even seen. You had an incredible run there and an incredible mix of players.
He had confidence in his offense, and he was an aggressive young man. That's what made him a great athlete.
Yes.
He's got to go down as one of the probably three best athletes ever came out of Rome, along with Jerry Burleson and Mike Davis. The three of them were probably the three best athletes that ever played for RFA.
So the last question, Coach, are you retired now, or what do you do? What is Buddy Evans doing for the world to know?
Well, I work as supervisor at the RFA games, boys and girls. I go to as many games as I can. In fact, in another hour, I'm going over and watch Hamilton play Conn College. Yesterday, I watched my grandson, who was on the team at Janesville DeWitt. Then I went to the Lemoyne game. And I tell people I have to go to the Janesville DeWitt game to watch my grandson warm up because he doesn't play. So I count his shots in warm-ups, tell him he shot 30% for warm-ups. Maybe that's why he's not playing. But
that's why you're a great coach, though. You say it like it is, right?
Well, I try to tell it as it is. I can't be any different. But being on this show was great. I love to reminisce. I went through some statistics, looking forward to the show so that I would have some knowledge if he did ask me questions, and brought back a lot of fond memories.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you taking time out on your Sunday to be on our show, and all the best to you and the family. And make sure you give our best wishes to the missus.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Coach, one last thing. It was a rainy morning here, a little chilly at 75 degrees, so we had to struggle with that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, yesterday, last 2 days it was about 10 below. Now it's probably 20. It'll get up to 40 today, believe it or not.
Get the suntan lotion out in Rome.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Coach, appreciate
My wife
it.
really appreciates what you just said because she's been after me to go to Florida.
Hey, you have some hosts down here.
Okay.
Just let us know. You have our contact information.
Thank you very, very much. And best of luck with this show. It's great. It's great talking to both of you.
Thanks,
Coach. All the best.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was great.
Yeah. I mean, Coach Evans is still, got the same energy that he's had 45 years ago.
We're gonna bring on Dale Shackelford's high school football coach right now. Coach Rizzo. Good morning.
How are you? Hi,
Good.
Shaq.
You look
Coach,
young.
how are you?
You look younger than your son.
Oh, that's easy.
Hey, Coach, before we get going here, and I say this all the time, and I say it to you when I saw you last time, is that you were the main reason why I became a physical basketball player. You taught me a lot in the little short time that I was with you on the football team, and I really appreciate that. And that carried me a long way in life in basketball. So I really appreciate it.
You were a great athlete, Shaq, and I wanted you as a sophomore, but I knew where your heart was, and I thank you for coming out that 1 year. I couldn't get Eddie. He was
well. I told Ben Jr. this. He visits Delray every now and then, and of course we go out and have coffee, right?
Yeah.
But my dad passed 2 years ago. He was 95 years old, and I'll never forget. He said, whenever you had that conversation with him, I don't know what it was. He said, you would have got me a scholarship to the University of Miami as a defensive back, and that's what he told me. That's what he told me. I told Coach Evans there are certain things, even as we get older, that we forget, but we remember a lot of cool stuff. But
I appreciate Buddy Evans wearing the orange jacket today for my Miami team. That was very nice.
So before we get into asking you a few questions, and we've got some of your former players commenting here on as you're on. Your son had said usually at this time on Sunday you're going to brunch and dealing with all the ladies wherever you live. Is that true?
I'm going to lunch and what?
You're going to brunch, Sunday brunch, and there's a lot of women folk that you deal with that we're not cramping your style, are we?
Absolutely not. I got all afternoon.
There you go.
So, Coach, your bio is pretty incredible. It talks about adversity and perseverance, walking on, going to Utica Proctor, but walking on at the University of Miami, which actually my son went to. So I'm an alum of I'm a parent. I'm an alumni there. I love the Canes football down here. But what was that experience like, walking on and then ending up being the team captain, which arguably I've been told is your biggest, what you're most proud of?
Oh, absolutely. Being chosen by my teammates to lead them in 1962 was a great honor. I still have a lot of friends there. Of course, the coaches all changed after 60 years, but it was a time that I'll never forget. I don't want to go into the hardships and so forth. It was all worth it. And it made me a better person for it. Thank you.
Yeah, Coach, we talked to Coach Evans about the competition, the COL, Hartford, Whitesboro.
The competition.
UFA. That was great competition back then in the COL. And now, the COL is no longer in existence. Give us your thoughts on, how that competition was back in the day.
Dale, I'm having a hard time picking you up.
We have, well, the COL back in the day, we had, RFA, Proctor, UFA, New Hartford, Whitesboro, Notre Dame. And now, the COL is no longer there. Can you, elaborate a little bit on how, that COL league was, competitive as compared to now?
Yeah, it's really a shame what happened over the years. And unfortunately, I understand that Notre Dame was having a hard time even fielding a football team this year. But we had some great games. Rome, I mean, everybody was a weekend that you'd never forget. I remember the first time we beat Rome in '69 with Tom Swider, Tommy Sardelli, Craig Fallon. We lost Michael at the night of the game or the afternoon of the game, Michael Walsh, which was terrifying for all of us back in '69. But I don't know how the boys did it. They went out and we beat Rome 30-20, and Sard had one of his best days. Those are days I'll never forget.
Coach, one of your players, Donnie Green, just put on the screen. I don't know if you can see it. It said, "Coach Rizzo was such a great coach because he was able to deal with the players where they were at the time. A pat on the back, an encouraging word, and a kick in the butt were all in his highly effective arsenal." Those are pretty neat words, right?
Yes, Donnie's been coming down for the last 3 years here, and we go out for a brunch every so often. He and his wife have befriended me again, and I owe him a call. Don, if you're listening, I'll call you. I know I owe you a call. We'll get together this week.
Yeah, it might start getting a little bit noisy here. There's more people coming in.
Picking up some background noises.
Yeah. But anyways, we'll try to get through this. You were there. Coach Klein was there at Notre Dame. To me, the ultimate. We told this to Coach Evans because he had a gym named after him. But having the field named after you, to me, that's, as a coach, that would be the highest honor of all honors. How'd you feel about that? Tell me a little bit about that day.
There's so many people who could be shared in that honor. All the guys who played for me, my family, my son, my daughter. Unfortunately, it's no longer there, I understand. I was king for a day, but I really appreciate all that went into it, naming the field after me. Thank you all.
Coach, what brought you back to Notre Dame? There was a time where you left and then you came back. What was the driving force that you came back to coach Notre Dame High School?
Well, I came back. I missed it terribly. And I had some close friends whose children were playing there at the time. And Barry Stanner was kind enough at the time to have me back as his assistant. Can you hear me all right, Eddie? I hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I did that. I went back when Ben was a freshman to coach him. I figured I'd help enough kids get into college. I owed myself that much to try to get him in school. Because I know his grades weren't what they should be at the time. Oh, yeah. Took right after his summer, unfortunately. But he ended up in the U of R, had a great career there, and I'm very proud of him.
Coach, you coached a lot of great players at Notre Dame, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but and you might be humble enough to not single out one of them, but who were some of the greatest Notre Dame high school basketball players that you had coached?
Basketball or
I'm
football?
sorry, football. I'm sorry.
I could name you two as basketball players. I'll try to go through a list. I try to go through by team. Um, Obviously, the '69 team, we sent 3 ball players to the university on scholarships. Rich Zimmer, Billy Wood, the kicker, Rich Griffiths, who made All-American, ended up in the pros, and Tom Swider. Craig Fallon was a great quarterback, ended up at Hamilton College. We had Selzniak, who went to Holy Cross that year. Rock Montesano went down to play at Albany. That '69 team was something special. And the '83 team, along with the Capsulacho family, and then Ben's year with Byron Abraham and Ben brought another championship to the school. On that team was Danny Nolan Jr., Ray Griffith. You know, there's so many at different times. I'm sorry that they all don't come to mind at the time. I probably should have done my homework better.
Well, no, that's great. I remember we had Bobby Ross.
Oh, Bobby, one of my favorites. I had him in grammar school
And Paul
at
Tetcherini.
Seymour. I was speaking at Seymour at the time, and dragged him along to Notre. Another great quarterback. That's a coach on the field. He knew most
Yeah, Paul Tetcherini.
the average coach did.
You had the my years. You had Paul Tetcherini.
Yeah, Ben just whispered in my ear. Paul's an attorney right now. Great kid, great guy.
If I remember correctly, you came back as an assistant when your son was the quarterback, right?
Eddie, I'm picking up the background.
Coach, you came back as an assistant when your son was the quarterback. Is that correct?
You still didn't hear it, Eddie. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the rain subsided here, and golfers are coming in, and we're gonna have to probably get a new location, right, going forward.
Yeah, one of the other rooms.
But Coach, thank you for sharing a few minutes with us this Sunday. You look great. You got a heck of a lot more hair than me.
Well, I thank you for having me, and you two guys look great yourselves. And if I get down to the East Coast, they're only a couple 100 miles away. We'll go out and have a cup of coffee.
That sounds great, Coach, and we really appreciate you taking time out on your Sunday morning to be on the Salt&Pepper show. It's great seeing you, and believe me, we'll always have great memories. Our time spent with you.
All right, thank you for having me.
All right, Coach. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Well, and I think it was a great show. It was a great
A
show.
very good show until the yellow crowd in here. Speaker has malfunctioned on us again. But we'll get that straightened out. ASAP.
So, as Salt&Pepper says, if you want to shine, you have to grind.
There you go.
Everybody have a great Sunday up north. Stay warm. I know it's heating up a little bit, but we'll have to weather this chilly 77 degrees overcast. So have a great rest of the Sunday. Thanks for tuning in.